The silent invasion. Commander Diana Reyes stood at the observation deck of the EFS Prometheus, watching as another human colony went dark below. New Terra, population 6 million, had fallen silent in less than an hour. No weapons fired, no bombs dropped, just an ever-expanding wave of darkness that consumed everything in its path. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the hollow ache in her chest. Lieutenant James Wong's fingers danced across his console. "Same pattern as the others, Commander. Total energy depletion across all systems. Power plants, fusion reactors, even basic chemical batteries. Everything's dead." Diana pressed her hand against the reinforced viewport, feeling the cold seep through her skin. This marked the 5th colony lost in 2 months. 23 million lives hadn't been ended, exactly, but they might as well have been. Without power, without heat, without the ability to maintain their atmospheric processors or grow food in their hydroponic farms, those colonies were tombs in waiting. "Get me deep scan results," she ordered. "Focus on quantum field fluctuations." Dr. Rashmi Patel, their quantum physicist, had been waiting for this command. "Already running the analysis, Commander. There's something different this time. The energy isn't just disappearing, it's being redirected." Diana turned sharply. "Redirected where?" A holographic display materialized in the center of the bridge, showing complex energy patterns spiraling outward from New Terra. The streams of power curved through space like rivers of light, all flowing toward a single point at the edge of the system. "That's impossible," Lieutenant Wong whispered. "The energy requirements to maintain a transfer field at that distance would be astronomical," Dr. Patel finished, "unless you found a way to manipulate space-time itself at a quantum level." Diana studied the pattern, her mind racing. 5 colonies, 5 attacks, 5 points on what was starting to look like a very deliberate geometric pattern. She reached out and manipulated the hologram, extending the lines of energy flow outward. "Plot the locations of all affected colonies," she commanded, "and show me the next potential target based on this pattern." The computer processed her request, and new points of light appeared in the display. The pattern was undeniable now, a massive pentagram being drawn across human space, with Earth sitting almost exactly at its center. "They're not random attacks," Diana breathed. "This is preparation. They're building something, or powering something, and Earth is the focal point." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had spread across nearly 100 worlds in the past century, but Earth remained their heart, their most populous world, and their primary industrial center. If these energy-draining attacks were building to a strike at Earth— "Commander," Communications Officer Raj Kumar's voice cut through the silence. "We're picking up something. Well, you need to hear this." A sound filled the bridge, unlike anything Diana had ever heard before. It was like crystal chimes mixed with quantum harmonics, forming patterns that seemed to bypass her ears and speak directly to her brain. Dr. Patel's eyes went wide. "That's not a natural phenomenon. That's language, incredibly complex, incredibly ancient." The sound shifted, changed, and suddenly resolved into words that echoed with alien harmonics. "Your species burns too brightly. Your energy consumption creates ripples in the cosmic web. We are the Voidborn, and we bring balance to the universe." Diana's jaw tightened. First contact, after all these centuries of searching the stars, and it came in the form of beings who saw humanity as nothing more than an energy inefficiency to be corrected. "Respond on all frequencies," she ordered. "Tell them this is Commander Diana Reyes of the Earth Fleet ship Prometheus. We demand they cease their attacks on our colonies immediately." The response came instantly, the alien harmonics taking on an almost amused tone. "You do not comprehend. We are not attacking. We are preserving. Your species' use of energy is chaotic, wasteful. We bring order to chaos. We have done this for millions of years, across thousands of galaxies. You cannot stop the inevitable." Diana looked at the hologram again, at the pattern of dead colonies and stolen energy. They thought humanity was wasteful. They thought they could just sweep in and correct billions of lives with their superior technology and ancient wisdom. "Send a message to Fleet Command," she ordered. "Tell them we've made first contact, and we've identified the threat. And tell them—" She paused, watching as the last lights of New Terra flickered out below. "Tell them humanity is about to teach these Voidborn a lesson about chaos and order they'll never forget." The Prometheus's engines hummed to life as Diana plotted their next move. The Voidborn might have spent millions of years perfecting their energy-stealing technology, but they'd never encountered humans before. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was turning an enemy's strength into their greatest weakness. The game was on, and humanity's very existence hung in the balance. The price of knowledge. The war room aboard the Prometheus hummed with tension as Diana studied the quantum array readings from the latest Voidborn attack. 30 scientists and military strategists surrounded her, each bringing pieces of a puzzle they desperately needed to solve. "The energy transfer patterns are becoming clearer," Dr. Patil announced, manipulating the holographic display. "Each colony they drain becomes part of a vast network. It's like they're building a cosmic capacitor." Admiral Harrison, joining via secure quantum link from Earth Command, leaned forward in his projection. "How much time do we have before they complete their pattern?" "At their current rate." Dr. Patel's fingers flew across her console. 3 weeks. Maybe less. Once they complete the geometric formation, they'll have the capability to drain Earth in a single synchronized attack. Diana watched as the simulation played out. The massive pentagram of dead colonies channeling unimaginable amounts of power toward Earth. But something about the pattern nagged at her consciousness, a detail they were all missing. "Look at the quantum resonance frequencies," she said suddenly. "They're not just stealing energy. They're storing it in a very specific way." Lieutenant Wong analyzed the harmonic patterns in their communication signals against the energy storage signatures. Wong's eyes widened as the data streamed across his screen. "They match. The Voidborn aren't just talking to us. They're showing us exactly how their technology works." "But why would they?" "Because they don't see us as a threat," Admiral Harrison finished. "They've done this so many times to so many species, they don't even bother hiding their methods anymore." Diana smiled grimly. "Then let's make them regret their arrogance." "Dr. Patel, what if we could use our understanding of stellar engineering to disrupt their energy collection grid?" The quantum physicist straightened, her eyes lighting up with sudden understanding. "The solar collectors at Alpha Centauri. We could modify them to generate a reverse quantum cascade. Instead of letting them drain our energy, we force feed them more than they can handle," Diana finished. "Every colony they've drained becomes a potential weapon." Admiral Harrison's hologram flickered as he considered the implications. "The risk would be enormous. If the calculations are off by even a fraction, we're already dying," Diana cut in. "They're not giving us a choice, but we can choose how we fight back." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Very well, Commander. You have authorization to proceed with Operation Sunforge. But remember, we only get one shot at this." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of preparation. The Prometheus's engineering team worked alongside Dr. Patil to modify their quantum communications array, turning it into something that had never existed before. A device capable of interfacing with the Voidborn's own energy network. Diana stood on the bridge as they approached the latest active collection point, watching the crystalline Voidborn ships dance through space like living fractals of light. They were beautiful, in their alien way, but she couldn't afford to admire them. Not after what they'd done. "They're initiating their drain sequence," Wong reported. "Energy levels in the colony are starting to drop." "Perfect," Diana breathed. "They're committed to the process. They can't stop mid-collection without risking a catastrophic feedback loop." She turned to Dr. Patel. "Are we ready?" The physicist nodded, her fingers poised over the controls. The solar collectors are aligned. Warning, this is going to get bright. Diana opened a channel to the Voidborn ships. Attention, this is Commander Reyes. You claim to understand energy better than any species in the galaxy. Let's test that theory. The alien response came immediately, their crystalline harmonics tinged with what might have been amusement. Your species continues to resist the inevitable. Your understanding is limited. Your technology is primitive. You cannot hope to. Now, Diana commanded. Dr. Patil activated the Modify collectors. The space around them erupted in light as concentrated solar energy, amplified and focused through quantum tunneling, poured into the Voidborn's collection grid. Their careful network of energy streams suddenly blazed with power they never intended to handle. The alien ship's crystalline structures began to vibrate, their perfect geometries distorting as they struggled to contain the overwhelming surge. Their communication descended into chaos, harmonic patterns shattering into discord. How? Their collected voice rang through the bridge. This energy pattern, it defies all known laws of. That's humanity's gift to the galaxy, Diana replied, watching as the first Voidborn ship cracked, spraying fragments of living crystal into space. We don't just adapt to laws. We figure out how to break them. The chain reaction spread through the enemy fleet. One by one, their ships shattered, unable to contain the power they'd so arrogantly thought they could control. As the last explosion faded, the colony below began to flicker back to life, its stolen energy returning through pathways the Voidborn themselves had created. But Diana's victory smile faded as new data scrolled across her screens. The energy readings from the remaining points in the Voidborn's pentagram were changing, intensifying. They weren't giving up. They were accelerating their plans. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them Operation Sunforge was successful, but the Voidborn are responding. And tell them—" She paused, watching as space itself seemed to ripple with distortions around the shattered alien fleet. "Tell them to prepare for whatever comes next. Because we just proved humans can hurt them. And that makes us more dangerous than any species they've encountered before." The Prometheus's engines pulsed as they set course for the next battlefield. The war for humanity's survival had entered a new phase, and Diana couldn't shake the feeling that their first victory had just unleashed something far worse than energy-stealing aliens. The real test of humanity's resolve was about to begin. Breaking point. The holographic command center aboard the Prometheus erupted in chaos as reports flooded in from across human space. The Voidborn's response to Operation Sunforge had been swift and devastating. Instead of their previous methodical approach, they now struck multiple colonies simultaneously. "New Sydney is gone," Lieutenant Wong reported, his voice cracking. "Perth Station, New Dubai, and the Ganymede colonies, all hit within the last hour." The tactical display showed spreading zones of darkness like cancer across the star map. Diana gripped the edge of her command station, knuckles white. They're not just accelerating their timeline. They're changing their pattern completely. Dr. Patil worked furiously at her quantum analysis station. The energy signatures are different too. They're not just draining power anymore. They're destroying the infrastructure that generates it. They're making sure we can't use their own network against them again. A new signal cut through their communications, the Voidborn's crystalline harmonics now sharp with something that sounded almost like rage. "Your resistance has proven costly, humans. We offered balance. You chose destruction. Now you will witness true power." The main viewer showed a massive gathering of Voidborn ships, their crystalline forms now pulsing with dark energy that seemed to devour light itself. They were assembling at Proxima Centauri, forming a structure that defied Euclidean geometry. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" Diana demanded. Dr. Patel's face had gone pale. "They're building something we theorized but could never achieve. A quantum vacuum collapse initiator. If they activate that, speak plainly, they could trigger a chain reaction that would unravel space-time itself across this entire sector." Earth, our colonies, everything would be. She couldn't finish the sentence. Admiral Harrison's hologram materialized in the command center. Commander Reyes, we're deploying everything we have left. Every ship, every weapon. But we need a miracle. Diana studied the tactical display, her mind racing. The Voidborn had abandoned subtlety for raw power, but in doing so, they'd revealed something crucial about themselves. They're afraid, she whispered. Commander, Wong looked up from his station. Think about it. Diana's voice grew stronger. They'd spent millions of years harvesting energy from species that couldn't fight back. We hurt them. We proved their technology isn't invincible. And now they're reacting with overwhelming force, not because they're strong, but because they're terrified of what else we might figure out. She turned to Dr. Patel. The quantum vacuum collapse. It requires perfect synchronization across their entire fleet, correct? Yes, the geometries have to be exact, or the whole thing falls apart. But we can't get close enough to disrupt it without being detected. Diana's eyes gleamed. We don't have to get close. Lieutenant Wong, what's the status of the quantum communications network we salvaged from their destroyed ships? Wong checked his readings. We've decoded about 60% of their basic protocols, but we can't replicate their higher functions. We don't need to, Diana interrupted. We just need to make noise. She opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, this is Commander Reyes. Prepare to execute Operation Discord on my mark. The plan was audacious, perhaps even insane. They would use their partial understanding of Voidborn technology to broadcast conflicting quantum signals across their entire network. Not enough to communicate with their ships, but enough to create interference in their perfectly synchronized patterns. They'll detect the intrusion almost immediately, Dr. Patel warned. By then it'll be too late, Diana replied. Their own network will amplify our disruption. The more they try to maintain their perfect geometry, the more our signal will cascade through their fleet. The Voidborn ships continued their complex dance, weaving reality-bending energies between them. The structure of their vacuum collapse initiator was nearly complete. All ships in position, Wong reported. Diana took a deep breath. This would only work once. After this, the Voidborn would adapt, modify their protocols, become immune to such a simple trick. But they only needed once. Execute Discord. Every human ship activated their modified quantum arrays simultaneously, flooding the Voidborn's network with carefully calculated chaos. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The crystalline ship's perfect formation began to waver as conflicting signals propagated through their link. Their collective voice boomed across space, but now it was fragmented, discordant. What? How? Impossible. The patterns, breaking. The geometric structure they'd been building collapsed in on itself, dark energies turning inward. Space itself seemed to shudder as the vacuum collapse initiator imploded, taking a third of the Voidborn fleet with it. But even as Diana allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, her tactical display lit up with new warnings. The surviving Voidborn ships weren't retreating. They were changing, their crystalline forms flowing like liquid metal, adapting to prevent any further interference with their network. New configuration detected, Wong reported grimly. They're evolving. Diana watched as the alien ships took on new forms, darker and more organic than before. They'd struck a mighty blow, but the war was far from over. The Voidborn were learning, adapting, becoming something new and terrifying in response to humanity's defiance. Send word to Earth Command, she ordered. Tell them Operation Discord was successful, but we need to prepare for the next phase. The Voidborn aren't just trying to drain our energy anymore. They're fighting for survival. And that makes them more dangerous than ever. The stars seemed to dim as the transformed Voidborn fleet regrouped, their new forms blocking out the light of Proxima Centauri. Humanity had won another battle, but Diana couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just triggered an escalation that would test them beyond anything they'd faced before. The real war was just beginning. The counter wave. Aboard the Prometheus, the atmosphere was electric with a mixture of dread and determination. 3 weeks had passed since Operation Discord, and the transformed Voidborn had gone silent. Not retreated, waiting. Their new organic crystalline hybrid ships hung at the edges of human space like dark stars, watching, evolving. "The latest analysis is ready," Dr. Patil announced, her voice hoarse from too many sleepless nights. The holographic display showed the evolutionary patterns of the Voidborn ships. They're not just adapting their technology, they're fundamentally changing their entire existence. Diana studied the patterns, noting how the once rigid crystalline structures now flowed like living tissue. They're becoming what they never wanted to be: chaotic, unpredictable. We forced them to abandon millions of years of perfect order. Admiral Harrison's hologram appeared, his expression grim. "Commander, our deep space probes have detected massive energy fluctuations throughout the sector. Whatever the Voidborn are planning, it's big." The tactical display updated, showing waves of quantum distortions rippling through space. The pattern was familiar, but twisted, corrupted. The Voidborn weren't just draining energy anymore. They were weaponizing it. "They're going to try to turn our own power against us," Dr. Patil realized, her fingers flying across her console. "All those colonies they drained, all that stored energy, they're converting it into something else." Lieutenant Wang's station suddenly erupted with alerts. Multiple quantum signatures detected. They're coming in from all directions. The view screen filled with the sight of Voidborn ships emerging from what looked like tears in space itself. Their new forms were nightmarish, organic crystals that pulsed with stolen energy. But something was different about their movement. No longer geometric and precise, but fluid, almost predatory. Their collected voice filled the command center, but it too had changed, becoming a harmonic growl that set teeth on edge. "You forced us to evolve, humans. You made us embrace chaos to survive. Now witness the price of your defiance." The lead Voidborn ship released a pulse of energy unlike anything they'd seen before. Where it touched human vessels, it didn't just drain them, it twisted their very atomic structure, turning metal and ceramics into crystalline growths that consumed the ships from within. "Fall back," Diana ordered as the first wave of human ships began to disintegrate. "All vessels, emergency jump protocols." But before the fleet could retreat, something unexpected happened. The crystalline growths on the affected ships began to pulse with a familiar energy signature, the same quantum resonance they'd decoded from the original Voidborn network. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. "Commander, the infection. It's not just destroying our ships, it's trying to convert them, to make them part of their network. But our quantum shielding is interfering with the process." Diana's mind raced. If the Voidborn were trying to assimilate their technology, to add human ships to their collective. "Doctor, could we use our quantum shields to reflect the conversion process back at them?" "Theoretically, yes, but we'd need to modify the entire fleet's shielding simultaneously. The calculations would have to be perfect, or we'd risk." "Do it," Diana interrupted. "Lieutenant Wang, transmit shield modification protocols to all ships. Dr. Patel, you have 2 minutes to get those calculations right." The Voidborn pressed their attack, more ships dissolving into crystalline horror with each passing second. But Diana had seen something in their new strategy: desperation. They weren't just fighting to preserve universal balance anymore. They were fighting to survive, and that made them vulnerable. "Modifications ready," Dr. Patil announced. "But Commander, this is going to affect every ship in range, including us. Once we activate the feedback loop, there's no stopping it." Diana opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, prepare for Shield Protocol Omega. When I give the word, divert all power to modified quantum shields." The Voidborn ships surrounded them, their organic crystal forms rippling with malevolent energy. Their voice boomed through space. "Your technology cannot save you. You will become part of the new order." "You're right about one thing," Diana replied. "We're about to become part of something new. just not what you intended. Now, every human ship's quantum shields flared to life simultaneously, but instead of trying to block the Voidborn's convergent energy, they absorbed it, modified it, and reflected it back amplified by their own power systems. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. The reflected energy caught the Voidborn in their own trap, their hybrid ships unable to resist the very process they'd created. But instead of converting to crystal, they began to change in ways even they hadn't anticipated. Their collective scream echoed through space as their carefully evolved forms were forced to adapt again, but this time guided by human quantum patterns. The boundary between organic and crystalline, between order and chaos, began to blur. Diana watched in awe as both fleets began to transform, human and Voidborn technology merging into something entirely new. The line between enemy and ally started to dissolve as a new kind of consciousness emerged in the quantum network connecting them all. "What have you done?" The Voidborn's voice was different now, filled with confusion and something that might have been wonder. "This unity, it's not what we intended, but it's evolution," Diana finished. "Real evolution, not just adaptation. We're becoming something neither of us could have become alone." The transformation spread across space like a wave of light, and Diana knew that the war was over, not because either side had won, but because both sides had transcended the very concept of victory and defeat. The real question was, what would they become together? Dawn's return. The quantum consciousness that had emerged from the merger of human and Voidborn technology pulsed through space like a new form of life. Diana Rice, or what remained of her individual consciousness within the greater whole, observed as both species grappled with their shared evolution. "We understand now." The collective voice resonated through the quantum network, simultaneously alien and familiar. "For millions of years, we sought to impose order on the universe. You taught us that true balance comes from embracing both order and chaos." Through the shared consciousness, Diana could feel the ancient memories of the Voidborn. Countless civilizations they had corrected, endless cycles of energy harvesting across the galaxies. But she could also feel their newfound wonder at human adaptability, their growing appreciation for the beauty of imperfection. "The transformation is spreading," Dr. Patel's consciousness reported through the network. Across human space, the dead colonies were coming back to life, but not as they were before. The merged technology was creating new forms of energy generation, new ways of existing that honored both species' strengths. Admiral Harrison's presence rippled through the collective. "Can we maintain our individuality within this unity, or will we lose ourselves entirely?" That was the crucial question that both species now faced. The Voidborn had always been a collective, but humans prized their individual identity. The merger had created something unprecedented, a network that preserved individual consciousness while allowing for perfect cooperation. Diana focused her thoughts, maintaining her sense of self within the greater whole. "We don't have to choose between unity and individuality, just like we don't have to choose between order and chaos. We can be both." Through their shared perception, they could see the changes spreading across space. The once dead colonies were transforming into hybrid habitats, where human creativity merged with Voidborn efficiency. Energy wasn't just consumed anymore. It flowed in perfect cycles, each community both generating and preserving power in ways neither species had imagined possible. But more importantly, they could see the future spreading out before them like branches of possibility. The combined knowledge of both species opened up new frontiers of exploration and understanding. The Voidborn's million-year journey to preserve universal balance had led them to this unexpected evolution, guided by humanity's unique ability to embrace change. "We were wrong," the Voidborn consciousness admitted, their ancient harmonics tinged with newfound humility. "We thought we were maintaining balance in the universe. But true balance isn't about controlling energy. It's about learning to dance with it." Through the network, Diana could feel Earth's population beginning to understand and adapt to the transformation. Fear gave way to wonder as people realized they hadn't lost their humanity. They'd expanded it, becoming part of something greater while retaining everything that made them unique. This is just the beginning, Diana projected to the collective. We've become something new, but our journey isn't over. It's just changing direction. The hybrid fleet began to move in perfect synchronization, but not with the rigid geometry of the old Voidborn. Their movements were fluid, adaptive, combining human intuition with Voidborn precision. They were no longer conquerors or defenders. They were explorers of a new frontier. As the first light of dawn broke over Earth, it illuminated a civilization transformed. The war that had begun with an attempt to drain humanity's energy had ended by unleashing humanity's greatest strength, the ability to take what seemed like defeat and turn it into unprecedented evolution. What now? The question rippled through the collective consciousness, voiced by both humans and Voidborn alike. Diana's answer resonated through the quantum network, carrying with it all the hope and determination that had defined humanity's resistance. Now we explore what we can become together. There are still countless galaxies out there, countless civilizations we might encounter. But this time, we don't bring judgment or correction. We bring understanding. The merged fleet rose from Earth's orbit, their hybrid forms catching the light of the rising sun. They had started as enemies fighting over the nature of energy and order. They had ended as something entirely new, a testament to humanity's ability to turn conflict into cooperation, and the Voidborn's capacity to learn that perfect order wasn't the answer they'd spent millions of years seeking. The universe stretched out before them, full of endless possibilities, and for the first time in millions of years, both species looked to the future not with a desire to control it, but with eagerness to discover what it might bring. Dawn had returned to Earth, but it was just the beginning of a new day for both species. Together, they would write the next chapter in the story of consciousness itself.